The funny thing about this specific solo run is that the recording you're watching right now was done almost a year ago now. And there are many reasons you're only seeing it right now, reasons which I'll get to at the end of the video. But for now, it's time to ask the simple question: can you beat Fire Emblem the Sacred Stones using only Colm? Before we get into the analysis of the run, let's take a minute to highlight the rules quickly for those who are new here. For this challenge, I can only use Colm. It has to be on hard mode, no glitches / cheat allowed, except for one, but I'll get to that detail later in the video. We are only allowed to deploy with one healing item per maps and cannot take any out of the convoy. We may, however, acquire them through natural means, such as from trading on characters who reinforce midway through the map, or a chest or village, so on and so forth. And again, emphasis on that rule because it's important in this video. This run has been one of those which people have heavily speculated on in the comment section. With reason, as Colm is a thief, and thieves traditionally in Fire Emblem aren't known for their combat prowess. And this rule applies itself equally to Colm, and his bases and growth will support this archetype. When it comes to his bases, all of them except for luck and speed find themselves to be pretty low, even amongst some of the lowest in the entire game. In terms of his two good stats, those being of speed and luck, they do fit his utility role, as speed is required to steal from other units, and that's a pretty major part of this unit when playing him in Fire Emblem. Additionally, his speed of 10 and luck of 8 allow him to be a pretty decent dodge tank. Usually you can plop him on a forest and he will dodge pretty handily most attacks thrown at him, even when he has a weapon triangle disadvantage. So he'll come with a form of survivability built into his kit. But he won't be doing big damage numbers with a strength of 4 though. And while his growths kinda support his bases, he could honestly do much worse than 40% growth in strength, which beats out unit like Marissa, Joshua, and Renais in terms of sword lock units. So that's kinda good, honestly. And when you look at his other growths, his HP, skill, and resistance seem to fall a little bit below the general averages, but 25% growth in defense isn't bad at all, and 45% luck growth is pretty average too. And on top of it all, Colm shares the highest speed growth in the game with Tana, if you exclude Myrrh and Tethys, of course. So honestly, for a thief as a combat unit, you could do a lot worse, I tell you. And as you probably noticed in the background, the prologue was a piece of cake, and most of chapter 1 is too. Until we run into a very real problem. That is the boss, Brigitte. And even if you trade Seth's steel sword on Colm, our 6 strength here is far from enough to get the edge over him. And furthermore, the weapon triangle will be causing us major issues here in terms of hitting and dodging, that is. So overall, we'll need much better damage and hit rate to come close to beating him. And I do have a strategy here. See, luckily on this map, we do get friends. And the good thing about Franz here is he starts with 2 vulneraries, which means that according to our rule set, we can trade them both onto Colm to hopefully survive a little longer. And this is exactly why I emphasized the earlier rule about healing items, to make sure this moment did not feel like I was cheating. Also, I do not count Seth's vulnerary since Seth came from the prologue, and if we had had a prep screen, I could have removed him from the equation beforehand, but could not have removed Franz. That's kind of the logic I apply here. With all that being said, despite having a total of 9 available vulneraries for us, given that Colm came with 1, it still doesn't fix our damage and hit rate problem. So we'll need luck, but not only for hitting, but for level ups. Alright, here on this attempt, you'll see that we'll do much better on the damage front, doing 3 damage per hit on the steel sword. We will wait in front of him and try to hit once. We don't hit here. He does hit us with his 9 damage. That's why we'll be using our first vulnerary here. Wait again. That's going to be a lot of what's going to happen. We hit 1 of the 2 hits. That's pretty good, but we'll have to bring friends close here at some point because we're just using our last vulnerary now. We are over at 10 health, so we'll hope we hit some more of those here. We hit 1 more, 2 more. It's pretty good. We do keep getting hit a bunch. We are very close to a level up though, but we have Franz here who will use to trade vulneraries upon Colm. And here we won't heal right away. We'll just end the turn because we can tank one of his attack to try to get the level up. We do miss both attacks, so what we'll do then again is heal. Honestly, that 43% hit rate on us and the 73 on them is pretty bad. We do get to hit both and we get our level up. One more strength, one more speed, so that will help us both in our avoid rate and our damage. So again, we'll do the rig around the rosy with the vulneraries, and our hit rate isn't much better here, but we do get a little bit more damage with 4, and he is now down to 10 HP. And again, we'll use another vulnerary. You see how this is tough for a character like Colm to get through, and we did hit both of these here, so there is a world we will heal just to be safe because we don't want to miss those. Is 6 HP. We are also at 6 HP, and we hit those 2 last ones. Okay, we hit 44% in a row. I just want to say that was extremely lucky. And I think saying extremely lucky is the understatement of the year because we had no business hitting as much as we did there. And I'll be very honest with you guys, this could have been the exact moment where the run ended. And after all the attempts I did, I was getting close to actually thinking this run might have been impossible with Colm, because getting 9 strength is already a stretch. But what makes it even tougher here is hitting those very low hit rate, because the steel sword does help with the damage. It does slow Colm down and affect the hit rate too. So we got more than lucky here, but the friends vulneraries did come in pretty handy too. So we say thank you, friends, in the comment section, please, because he came in clutch there. And beyond this chapter, things simplify a little, as Colm will get some good level ups off the next 2 maps, which will be very easy for him given his great speed and the weapon triangle advantage he's going to have over all the axe yielding bandits ahead of us. At the end of chapter 4, we'll finally reach level 20, which is a little earlier than we usually do with other characters, and that is because the thief class in GBA Fire Emblem receives a slight bonus to gained experience, making it much easier to get those early levels on Colm and get him to that level 20 just a little bit sooner. As the start of chapter 5 plays out behind us, we'll take a quick look at our level 20 Colm, and here he is. That is all before the stat boosters we get on chapter 5, so add 2 skill and 2 defense to this. And I'll be honest, I'm more than pleased. Sure, the HP and skill and luck are pretty little below average, but maxed out speed, which was a pretty obvious outcome, is great. But the part that gets me the most excited, of course, is this 14th strength, which is really good for this character, making our early game that much easier than it should be. The good defense and res also are pretty positive, so we take those, but as we enter the portion of the game, it's nice to be a little bit ahead on strength for Colm. It will make a lot of the early portions of the game just that much easier, especially because Colm does not get his first promo item until chapter 9, so chapter 8 and 9 will be a little bit easier for him since he won't be able to promo until then. While I don't think things will get this hard, I decide to play it safe on chapter 5 and recruit Joshua simply to grab his killing edge. I will not be using him, I'm just using him to have an early killing edge, just in case I need a crit or that little bit of an extra push. Since the 14 strength is good, but I'm cautious about how Colm plays out in this whole run, I'll be honest. Which is why I'll make that extra precaution. But other than that, we will be picking up the usual items on this chapter, being the Dragon Shield, Secret Book, and Armor Slayer, of course. Chapter 6 won't cause too many issues. As we stand on the castle in the middle, the only semi-important thing that we pick up on this chapter is the elixir that we get from slaying the Troubadour. And after that, we just beeline it to the boss and end the map. On chapter 7, we'll have to handle things a little differently than we do usually, because we never really stop on chapter 7. We kind of usually gloss over it. But see, the thieves have an ability to, well, steal items. Of course, you know, that was pretty obvious from enemies in this game. And there is a mage who has probably one of the most important stealable items in the game, that being the energy ring, very early on. So we will play it a little safer to be able to steal that item from that mage and get our Colm to have 16 strength instead of 14. So very high damage very early on for this usually low damage character. So we're kind of blessed on that end. Other than that, nothing major happens and we get to move on to chapter 8, where things begin to spice up a little bit. See, on the second turn, Ephraim and crew show up on the left side, so we have to go save them before the reinforcements get to them, or else we'll get a nice game over, and we don't want that. The one problem is that Colm suffers from a very important condition, which is acute lances hurt me a lot disorder. And this chapter is very lance heavy, so we'll catch a couple of game overs on the time we go to save Ephraim and crew. And we even make it close to the end at some point, but we burn through our vulneraries a little too quickly on this map, given that we don't dodge as well as we'd want to, so we take a lot of damage straight to the face. And 10 heals from the vulnerary is not enough. What I'll do to change that, and luckily we'd pick up that item earlier, but I'll pick up the aforementioned elixir that we talked about that we got early on in chapter 6. Usually in solo runs, this item comes out around chapter 14, chapter 15, and beyond that point. And I do think Colm is our new earliest when it comes to pulling out the elixir. The previous one being Null, who I think I pulled it out on chapter 9. So, you know, it's very an interesting early elixir. But to survive this chapter, the first step will be to survive the caves on the left, having used that max 1 elixir, which we do. And the next roadblock will be the room filled with night, and we have to fight our way through it to grab the very important angelic robe if we want to come close to having enough HP for the later stages of the game. So we have to fight those. So we'll use a combination of the armor slayer we picked up earlier for damage and a regular iron sword just for dodging, since our strength is decent enough. But we'll make it all the way to Tirado, where despite the bad hit rates using the pillars around him, we'll manage to get a few Armor Slayer's hits in and finish this map with some difficulties, might I say, but we finish it nonetheless, and we move on to the route split. And here begins chapter 9, where we get Colm's first promo item, that being the Pirate Seal. And when it comes to promotion options for the Thief, we have a very interesting situation here, because we either have the Rogue or an Assassin. The former being built more for utility, and the later a little bit more for combat. Let's take a closer look at what drives those differences though. Right off the bat, both classes have the exact same stat cap, so that will not be taken into consideration. And yes, we'll get back to talking about those caps a little bit later, because we all saw the same thing, right? That 20 on the strength. Yeah, we'll talk about it a little bit later. But for now, let's focus on the differences. The main one being when it comes to the stat boost from the promo. And they're very simple. You get one more skill point on the Rogue class, which can be nice given that Colm doesn't have the greatest skill just generally. And the other one being 1 HP for Assassin, which is also nice because Colm does not have the best HP for, just for a unit. Another small advantage for Assassin is you get one more point in Constitution, making it slightly better with heavier swords, which we would like, honestly. Because with the strength cap, we probably won't be able to do that much damage with a lot of iron swords for a long time, so we were going to have to rely on other swords. So honestly, here the big thing is the Constitution in favor of the Assassin. There isn't much other differences that I really care about. The real big thing that will differentiate both of them is their class skills. The Rogue gains the ability to pick locks without using lockpicks, so it's nice but not necessarily necessary. And more importantly, keeps the ability to steal, which the Assassin loses. You cannot steal anymore of the Assassin in this game. However, the Assassin gets the Silencer skill, which gives you an instant kill if it activates off of critical hits. It has a 50% chance of activating off regular units and a 25% chance of activating on boss units. So the only unit, well, not the only, but the units where you'd want it to activate the most, it has a lower chance, but 25% chance, it's still pretty good. The one issue is that Colm isn't known for high skill in critical hits. So he'll have to be equipped with a killing edge to make that skill be something that procs even here and there. So obviously in combat situation, the Assassin will be better. But something to keep in mind is what steals am I missing out on if I do go the Assassin route? Because despite a somewhat decent Colm so far, some of his caps are indeed low and some are really high, but he may not reach those high caps with his pretty average growths outside of speed. So let's take a look at what we would be missing out on and if it's worth going down the steal routes. So overall, going forward with Eirika route, we have 3 red gems that we could steal, 1 talisman, 1 body ring, 1 guiding ring, 1 dragon shield, 1 goddess icon, and that's about it. So an okay haul. The red gems we don't really need, since in solo runs I usually end up having more funds than I need anyways. The guiding ring, we're not using a mage, so that leaves us with the 4 stat boosting items. So, they can be kind of useful. More constitution allows us to use more swords. A little bit better luck is good. A little bit better defense is good. And a little bit more res is good. Nothing bad. But there should be an asterisk besides all those items. they're usually found on enemies that are out of the way. So usually in the routes I use for the solo runs, most of these items aren't coming up without us doing a significant detour. The talisman on chapter 10, it comes from Pegasus reinforcements that we usually skip entirely. They don't even show up most of the time. The body ring on chapter 13 comes from bandit reinforcements we also usually skip. The dragon shield is on the berserker on chapter 17, which we also usually skip to save time because it's a kill boss map. So if we kill him quickly, we get to move on quicker. And the goddess icon on chapter 19 is on an archer where we may be able to get it, but the general strategy on that chapter involves skipping a lot of the fighting. So that's kind of another one we're missing out on. So with all that being said, I think it's pretty obvious that silencer may come in more handy than stealing. And that is why we will go with the assassin. As you probably saw in the background, we will be taking it slow on this map until we get the promo item. Given that Colm can take a lot of damage very quickly, so that also means that Amelia will leave before we can grab her speed wing. And honestly, I don't really mind since Colm's really good speed growth. He will get there eventually by himself, so I don't really think he does need that. But we do make it to the end of the map with only 2 HP remaining, so that's interesting. And we'll end the turn on that forest, and luckily the mercenaries don't have the best hit rate, but only 1 hit would take us out. We took a lot of damage on this map going forward. Again, a couple of lance units, not a lot of healing items. I think we were out of elixir, so we were on vulneraries here, so it's a little bit iffy. These iron bow guys might hurt us, but we got to take them out. So we'll start with 1 and we'll get him pretty easily. The second one hits us and we are down to 1 HP. Okay, the boss will be an interesting fight here in a second because we have no more healing items available to us. Let's see what he's got. We're going to pull out the killing edge. All right. Okay, he's got 16% chance to hit. We should be fine here. We hit the first time and we get a crit on the second time. He is dead. Okay, we might be fine, but if one of those archer hits us, okay, the iron bow on the 0 and this, okay. Well, if we kill the steel bow one and we are good to survive this map. This was a close one. Chapter 9 can sometimes be a rare map where things kind of get bad. It's just because of the way the map is built. You fight a lot of units, so if you're not using elixirs this early on, sometimes you'll get like close calls. Colm is not the first one to get close calls on this map, but it's an interesting map to get a close call on, to be fair. But the following chapters will be much easier as now we are promoted and gaining levels once again. So we'll rapid fire here a little bit. We'll grab the goddess icon from Tethys post chapter 10. On chapter 11, we have a secret book from one of the chests to help our skill out a little bit. On chapter 12, it will grant us an energy ring from Ewan, but I don't think we're using it because I think we already maxed our strength at this point because of, again, the low cap of 20. And on chapter 13, I decide to ignore the speed ring entirely since we have now maxed out our speed because of Colm's fantastic growth in speed. And while I attempt to rush down the boss, I get a little overwhelmed, which is something that's going to be recurrent here in this run. You'll see it a couple of times, getting surrounded. But here I do end up getting hit by a random sleep, and I fall asleep on the fort, so it's just a matter of running out the clock and winning by surviving. So we do lose a couple of turns there. All that because I wanted to kill that one mercenary to get a Zombato, because maybe for later it could be useful. Moving on to chapter 14, which goes by pretty easily despite a battle of mid hit rates. They are having literally a mid off here with those hit rates. It's pretty bad, but you know, that's going our way, and we move on to the oh so infamous chapter 15. One negative thing about promoting to assassin, though, is that Colm loses the ability that is unique to thieves and rogues to instantly grab desert items without having to rely on any luck. So that's a bummer since we have to wait around to grab the boots, body ring, and the worm slayer. But it's not as big of a bummer as being Null, just generally just him as an entity who once again perishes for us. Bye-bye, Null. And no, it's not because the Null Soul run has been completed that I will stop clowning on this clown. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. So as is customary on this map, our main goal will be to save Ephraim from the bottom left corner of the map before he forces us into an eventual game over. So we'll have Dusel hold him on the village just to wait out Colm's arrival, where he'll truly massacre all the enemy because while he has pretty bad strength, giving his low cap, Colm is basically a dodge machine. Showcasing his prowess perfectly when we take on Kalik, who has a 6% chance to hit us. Yeah, ain't gonna work out for you, buddy. Once we clean him up, we head all the way to Valtor with our Hoplin Guard and the Wormslayer to make a quick affair of the whole thing and move on to chapter 16, where we'll take a look at our level 20 promoted assassin. So as chapter 16 unfolds in the background, let's look at this level 20 assassin here. And as much as I was impressed with the earlier version, this here is actually a little disappointing. Yes, our average strength and speed are capped out, but if you look at the averages, it's more likely to happen than not to happen, just generally. His luck and defense are right where you'd expect them to be, given that we had one dragon shield and one goddess icon, and the resistance looks good. And by the way, this is pre the talisman we get on this chapter, so it's technically going to be a little better, so that's good. The place where I'm a little miff is his HP and skill. This Colm is technically a couple of points behind in his HP growth and 5 to 6 points behind on his skill growth. Because remember, we got 2 skill books and he's still behind the 18-point H, which is the most likely expected outcome. So the second round of level up didn't turn out the best for him, but as you've probably seen in the background, it doesn't really end up mattering too much because Colm's high speed and luck keep him firmly locked as a dodge tank. But as you may also have been seeing, the weakness of his class will start showing up here. First off, the damage cap will make him struggle a lot at one rounding high HP units, making him to be surrounded at points quite often. And pair that up with being sword locked, meaning we don't have a range type weapon readily available, we do often find ourselves moving by one tile a turn just because we gotta break through these little hallways to make our way forward. The one saving grace is that assassin will proc here and there, allowing us a semi-quick kill, but again, it would have been even better if we had 5 more points in skill. It wouldn't like made a huge difference, but it would have made a little bit of a difference. But these issues will start manifesting themselves a lot more starting here in the late game. And luckily we'll make it out of this craziness, killing Orson and moving on to chapter 17, where other than seeing the exact same issues of getting surrounded that we just talked about, it will go by pretty easily, but it will take a lot of turns just to break our way to Lyon. Once we get to him, it's fine, we kill him, but getting to him is a big issue with Colm here. And here we won't get into chapter 18 quite right away. And we'll have to make a quick pit stop at the Tower of Valny. And we'll also come back on the earlier no glitch rule, but here's where that exception will apply, and let me explain why. See, on chapter 18, sword lock units run into a big problem, and that is being soft locked. The run is dead technically, because there are 2 Gorgons that are on a ledge, which means we do not have a melee range to beat them or to kill them. So Colm would also get soft locked. Unless we can get our hand on one of the ranged swords in the game, they are available. There's 2 types of them, the rune sword or the light brand, but none occur naturally within the story before chapter 19. But luckily for us, there is a way to get a rune sword before chapter 19, and that is because there is a 0.1% chance for it to be a droppable item on skeleton in skirmishes or the Tower of Valny. Yeah, those odds are really low, which is why I allow the exception for one single glitch to drop a single sword. And basically that glitch makes a rune sword appear on that chapter. So basically the way you get to trigger is you start the map, then you immediately press the retreat button. Then when you arrive on the save screen, you reset your game. This will make it so that the next time you enter the tower, a skeleton on the left side of the boss will hold a rune sword. So while chapter 18 plays in the background, let me explain a little bit my thought process as to why I decided to do this glitch. First off, the odds of that drop are very, very low. Not impossible, but super low. It's extremely tedious to enter the tower and reset all the time to simply get that drop. I know I did it for the Gilliam run. And it would also skew the time for sword users disproportionately in comparison to all other units. But then again, I do recognize that sword units needing this specific weapon to succeed the run is an important factor in the ranking at the end. It should be taking into account because the moment you're in need of a specific item outside of the circuit twins at a specific moment, I feel that that makes you just a little bit less of a good unit if you're really wanting that specific special item. It's also important to know, as I said earlier, that Gilliam also needed that sword for other reasons, and I ended up having to spend some time resetting for him. While I don't remember the exact amount of time it took, what I ended up doing to kind of balance it all out, I try to make the sword spawn naturally by simply resetting without the glitch for about 10 to 15 minutes. And if it doesn't naturally occur, then I do the glitch. That way, if you get lucky, then you get better time. But if you get unlucky, well, you get to do the full 10 minutes. That way, it allows Gilliam to not be too penalized, given that he did have to spend some time in there. And the difficulty of sword unit is then kind of shown within the time that is taken to complete the game. And it also allows me to eventually move along and not die of boredom, and to keep the tedium of these runs pretty low. At least that's the way I feel. Let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. We can have a conversation about it. Anyways, when looking at chapter 18 for Colm, except having to take care of the long-range Gorgons with the aforementioned rune sword, the chapter really goes off easily. Unlike in some of the other solo runs, his general good speed allows him to face pretty low hit rates and just cruise his way through this chapter, honestly. And it just is kind of impressive how easy he has this chapter compared to a lot of other units. And another fun assassin/thief fact is that he simply can't get damaged by the fire tiles, since the game views them as traps, and this class deactivates traps when they walk on them. Pretty neat addition, honestly, and something I had fully forgotten about until this run. Next, chapter 19 also goes off pretty easily, but here what you'll see at the start is while I try to go rush Reeve, I will literally turn around because I take too long to go through these generals, and that has to do with Colm's low stat cap in strength. It's really low and it's affecting our one turn potential. Also, the fact that we don't have range attack means that we can't counter the druids and any ranged enemies, so we kind of get locked out of rushing Reeve. So I walk Colm back because I see the enemies are getting close to Mansell and him dying would cause us a game over. So we instead decide to rescue him and just stand on the throne, waiting out the onslaught. At the end, unequipping all our items once we've gotten the Brave Sword, because the Brave Sword is a useful item to have. And after all that, very uneventful, we move on to chapter 20. Before we start, I feel it's important to say that I just bought a shit ton of Killing Edge before starting this map, like a stupid amount of Killing Edge. But in hindsight, I should have probably filled up my supply with like almost 100 of them, because I'll show you what happened on chapter 20. First off, things go well. We take the bottom path and of course bank on using Silencer ability with the Killing Edge to quickly eradicate our enemies. And it works to varying degrees, but we do make it to near Morva pretty quickly. And then I make a pretty grievous error. I decide to take an extra turn to set up. That is because I want to heal up and get my inventory ready to go fight Morva, because he does do a lot of damage and he has a pretty high hit rate on Colm. So dodging isn't guaranteed, and I want to avoid just getting one tap and having to redo this. And what you're seeing on screen is where we end up getting stuck for a little bit. And that has to do with our lack of range weapon. Other than the one rune sword, which we have a couple of uses left for later on, we simply get properly blocked in. And even when I try to close in, somehow the archer will simply step in the way to box me out of the boss. Long story short, I end up punching through most of my Killing Edges to just beat out this troop because Colm's damage is far too low. And since a lot of the reinforcements are high HP enemies, if I don't end up critting here, there's no one-shot potential, and I would have to probably spend twice the time to just clear through all these enemies. And I know what you're about to say. I could have probably resetted and started over again and banked on an assassinate on Morva with that 25% chance to trigger. And you'd be correct, that would have been the correct course of action to take. And I'd love to tell you why I didn't take it. I would really love to let you know why I did not take that course of action. But it's been a year since I did this run, so I don't remember. I probably had some logic to it, but looking at it back, it was pretty shit logic because I could have just saved some time. But with that being said, I'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll move on to the final chapter with 2 uses of the Killing Edge remaining. And here begins Colm's final test, and I'll be honest, I'm quite worried about him because in the past few chapters, we've truly seen his damage fall off, him getting surrounded a bunch. As his 20 strength started becoming bad now, it was good a long time ago, and now as the enemy's defense increases and our HP increases, it's slowly becoming terrible. He's been relying heavily on silencer in the last few maps to make do. But on this map, the first thing we'll do after taking care of the early skeleton is to grab the angelic robe on the right hand side room to cap our HP. And then our first challenge will be ahead of us with the zombie dragon, and if Morva is any indication, this will kind of suck. So we'll use a strategy we've used in the past, relying on the rune sword for some free healing, and then we'll use our legendary weapon Adalma to finish it up. While this attempt was a little dodgy, we managed to have Lady Luck on our side and dodge, pun fully intended, quite enough to keep things pretty simple. We got lucky here, but you can see the zombie dragon isn't much of a problem. We just need a little bit of luck on our side. Luckily, Colm still has a more than decent speed stat, which helps him out a lot. The rest of the map until Leon is pretty standard and will not cause any major headaches as he'll pretty much dodge everything. So let us skip ahead to that. Once we've taken care of the Gorgons around here, we'll start seeing what we can do against Leon. Our main tools here will be the remaining killing edge uses and Adalma. Our damage against him will be plain awful, as you can see from the 2 mere damage on the killing edge, but if we get a silencer, that doesn't matter. It's a one tap. So what we'll do is we'll use a pure water to keep ourselves a little bit better in the res department, and unfortunately our 2 crits will prove to not work in our favor. And here on this first attempt, you'll see me use an interesting tactic once the killing edge breaks, as I will be using the brave sword. The reasoning here is I hope that I can get one of those 3% to be a crit and assassinate, having as many uses as possible to maximize the use. It doesn't work. In hindsight, probably not the best strategy. The moment I wise up to it though, I accidentally end my turn and forget to use the rune sword to heal off the archer behind Leon, which would have maybe saved me a couple of turns and allowed me to maybe switch to another weapon. So we get a game over, but that's okay. It was a practice attempt and the goal was mostly to observe our option. Let's give it another go. I feel there are many ways to optimize following attempts and use way less elixirs anyways, because we use them all here. We'll make it back to Leon for yet another attempt, and this time with all our elixirs, as we got ourselves a lucky crit on the zombie dragon earlier and used our rune sword to heal off when we needed to. And here we'll end the turn with our killing edge in front of Leon, having used a pure water to up that res. Hopefully we get a silencer proc, but once again that is not the case, and you can see why Leon is such a hard boss for this particular solo, because he hits like a truck, he has pretty good bulk, and even the one advantage Colm has, his speed, isn't enough to make him a reliable dodge tank against a monster of a man like Leon. Good thing he doesn't heal up, because at least we get to use a little bit left of our rune sword for free heals off the skeletons around Leon. And now we'll go at it with Adalma, which provides 10 more damage per hit and adds an extra 5 res, making our survivability a little bit better, but not perfect by any means. And here it is after taking it a little slower, we can easily end Leon. It was just a job of chipping down, moving off, healing, and coming back in. And we even ended with the steel blade, because why not? Let's add some insult to injury, I guess. And here begins our first Demon King attempt. And here are the stats we have to deal with. There's a pretty good dodge chance with 46% chance to hit on his end. But if we get hit once, we are in death range. And we have a pretty good hit rate with 78 and 20 damage, which means exactly 6 hits to kill. That's a lot of hits, but it's what we got to deal with. We did get hit in our first attempt, but that is a summon turn, which means a free heal for us as we move off of his range and start taking care of his reinforcements. And here I make a slight miscalculations. I don't go for the eyes right away, which I should have. I should have gone and killed the eyes, which means they'll attack Ephraim. And once again, I think this is a theme now. I forgot to give him a healing item. That's how our first Demon King attempt goes. I won't hold that one against Colm, to be fair. That's 100% on me and my P-brain. Let's go again. Let's try another time. And here we managed to kill Leon with only 1 elixir left on us. So we'll have to be very careful in how we handle all of this. We start by giving Ephraim a healing item and we move him out of the way. Next up, we go check out how the Demon King is doing. Again, same stats as before. We hit the first time. Can we dodge this first time? We do, and we hit him again. He's already down to 80 health. 2 more rounds of hitting on our end to go, and we are gonna be good to go. The reinforcements won't be too much of an issue, as we will be taking them out pretty easily with the Brave Sword. Luckily, we picked that up a little earlier. We did get hit a little bit, so we are not full HP, but he cannot one-tap us with his damage. Therefore, we can easily just go for it, attack him. And we missed that attempt, and he hits us, so we were down to 15 HP. We miss another one. Okay, if he hits us there, we are done for. Hopefully, we dodge, and we do. Okay. I can't believe we missed 278. We'll back up, we'll full heal, and then we'll go back in. Hopefully we dodge and he doesn't. Son of a gun. All right, let's go another time. We hit him down to 60 HP. Can we dodge that one? We do, and we hit him again. Okay, so now we need to dodge like our life depends on it, and we do, and hopefully we don't miss anything here. We miss one. What? Okay, don't get hit. Oh, and we hit on top of that. Okay, end the turn. Coin toss. Come on, Colm, please dodge. And he does. Thank the Lord. Okay, don't miss this time. Don't miss. And we did it. All right, that attempt was crazy. We did get pretty lucky with all those dodges, I must say. But I guess luck is part of it. And Colm's great avoid stat did come into play here, and really hard for us, really good for us. So when it comes to Colm, 2 things are very apparent with this run. We did get lucky with our start, as it was a pretty big roadblock to just simply get through it. And I do need to be lenient with the final time, as my blunder chapter 20 did cost him 20 to 30 minutes or so. Overall, he relied heavily on dodging attacks, which came up big for him, and that was the expected strategy for this character, given his stat spread. But also in the later stages of the game, proccing Silencer was a huge boon for him. And when we look at his final time and turn count, it's not looking amazing, and his subpar combat ability did cost him a lot, with 11 hours and 42 minutes and a turn count of 543. Those are amongst some of our highest. And even considering some leniency in his time and turn count, considering what happened on chapter 20, his lack of range and ability to quickly dispatch of enemies did end up costing him a lot. And that is all starting at the midway point in the game, where it started becoming apparent. He seemed to get stuck behind enemies quite often, and everything seemed to take a little bit more time with him than any other units that we've done so far for this series. And while a part of me considered putting him ahead of Gilliam due to my blunder on chapter 20, I feel like both of them are pretty similar. While Colm's final boss fight wasn't that tough, he did struggle in the start, where Gilliam had no trouble at all. So they both struggled, but in different places. But overall, I will be placing Colm below Gilliam, because even considering my own mistake on chapter 20, it doesn't translate to plus 40 minutes saved, or even close to over 70 turn difference. And that 70 turn difference does tell a big story in and of itself. And I will say that I am even surprised that Colm even managed the run. Colm was one of those units which I thought wasn't gonna do it. Hence why this video has been sitting on my hard drive for so long. I did not know how to approach it, because I genuinely was shocked that Colm managed to solo the game, because I was expecting him to fail to be able to make a run with Naomi. I was expecting Colm to be in a duo run with Naomi, because, well, that's another character I've been working on, and it's not an easy time. We might see Naomi in the future. I will try to do all the characters I have promised out in the past, but the main reason why this video was waiting for so long in my hard drive is I did not know how to handle the video, because I was shocked that Colm made it. So maybe we'll see a Naomi run at some point. Let me know in the comments, and leave a like if you want to see a Naomi run. You know, let me know that way. Thank you for watching the video. I'd like to give a huge shout out to all my members, especially my tier 2 and 3 members, Brawler456, Equipment Gameplay, Forgotten Fox, and Rogue Arcadia. Check out the join button below if you want to support the channel. It is one of the best way to support and helps me out a lot. Thank you for watching once again. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.